Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job, you immediately get your short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job criteria. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Panera favorites are hot and ready to serve for dinner. Taste our creamy mac and cheese served in a crispy bread bowl. Or the classic bacon turkey Bravo featuring our signature sauce. How about our new mouth-watering Chipotle chicken and bacon flatbread pizza? These and other favorites are waiting for you. Order dinner tonight for delivery or pickup. Only at Panera. Availability and pricing may vary.
It's True Crime Podcast Week, and there is no other place in the world with more true crime podcasts than iHeart. Discover the best of the best, like Crime Junkie.
Because if Mark didn't kill them, who did?
Exit Scam.
He alone had access to the money, and now he was gone.
Missing on 9/11.
There's not a trace of her.
And hundreds more. Just open the free iHeart app, tap podcasts, and dive in. Have a great True Crime Podcast Week from iHeart. #1 for music, radio, and podcasts, all in one app.
Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And the good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. We love you in Canada and Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. It's the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful June the 21st, 2021. Round of the Deportes. Bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton came off a wonderful Father's Day weekend where I ate too much fast food and I couldn't go to sleep. Tossed and turned all night, woke up, and it was Monday. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, our first responders. They take care of all those gastronomical problems that we end up having.
Yeah, it's good to be 12 years old, or at least to feel like you're 12 years old all over again. It's all fair and level. Where I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. If you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars never stop arriving. Also, all around the world, just say Google or Alexa play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. I really do appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. If you better have a smart TV, oh, you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, I love pausing Big C, but I will never pause on the Veteran Crisis Hotline. It's such a beautiful hotline, and to see even the NBA during the playoffs, they're scrolling, get help for your emotional help. It's all fair and level. Where Big C, everybody's doing it now, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, talking emotional health is so important in America. This is what keeps our bodies strong and keep our bodies going. But unfortunately, we lose over 24 military veterans a day because of that mental health, Charlton.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a way to address suicide in America on a more stern basis. I know we went on a rampage to create vaccine for COVID-19.
Yeah.
We need to take that same energy and devote it to suicide in America. You know, when they talk about opioids, addictions, and everything, they always want to find help for those people that are doing that.
Yep.
We need to find help for those people that are committing suicide, Charlton, to end that horrific disease that's been afflicting America too long.
Yeah.
We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, but we need more communication, open lines of communication. Talk to people. Find out about how they're feeling. See if you can alter their mind thinking, Charlton, and get them to go in a more positive direction. And let's find a way to defeat suicide.
Very well said. I think more people are trying to do it. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And you can definitely get some help for our veterans. and their loved ones really appreciate that. Also very happy to be affiliated with Valley, Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, TV 53, home of the first place San Francisco Giants, and then Say Hey Kid, as well as the home run king, Barry Bonds. When you reach out to him, just tell him Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country, helping to put people back to work, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it, sports teams do it, watch TV, and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. Most of our loans are underwritten by Rocket Mortgage, the #1 lender in the country on the wholesale side. Also, I wanted to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, Effect TV, and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said in Genesis 1:3, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up from all over the world. And I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. Man, I'm telling you, Father's Day, Big C, I want to pass a petition to the White House to do Father's Day every day, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think I've already lived in that lifetime for Father's Day every day, because I'm always being asked for something or to do something from a child, Charlton. So, I mean, Father's Day does exist for all of us that are in the home.
Yeah, it's all fair and level war. I want to wish all the great fathers a great Father's Day. I really appreciate my daughter and my son. They got me a nice gift basket. They got me some wines. They got me some chocolates, Big C. They got me some chips, some spicy salsa. And I think that spicy salsa is something that it tastes so good, Big C. Were you supposed to eat it all on the same day, or does it supposed to last a couple of days, Big C?
Well, Charlton, did they get you toothpaste and some mouthwash to go along with that?
No, it tastes better. It's like your leftovers. It tastes better the next day, Big C. You're not.
Well, Charlton, I mean, that might burn my stomach a little bit. I'm more fond of the meat side.
Yeah, meat side. How was your Father's Day, Big C? You're not.
It was a gastronomical affair, Charlton. I ate too much, I drank too much, and had a wonderful time, and didn't sleep that night.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that when you can't sleep. Sometimes a lot of good old boys can't sleep. Speaking of NBA basketball universe, it's a great game, and some people cannot sleep. When you think about the Milwaukee Bucks, they beat the Brooklyn Nets in Gotham City on Saturday night, Big C. King Giannis Antetokounmpo. When you think about what he did, and then he and Ice Trae with the Philadelphia 76ers, they decided to go fishing. I guess the Atlanta Hawks sent them fishing. And so we have the Milwaukee Bucks and we have the Atlanta Hawks that are going to represent the Eastern Conference Championship, as they all are looking for a chance to win the NBA championship and get that trophy snatched out of the hand of the Lakers. But for everybody that saw some great basketball, you know, sometimes the best player doesn't always win the game, Big C. When I saw what happened with the great Kevin Durant, if his foot was like a half size smaller, maybe a size or two smaller, Big C, he would have hit the game-winning three, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, basketball is not always about the best player. It's about the best team, last I checked.
Yeah.
And the best team's going to win in the end. The team that is more complete as far as following a game plan and executing it. I mean, you can have an individual on any team go out there and go off for 50 points, but you got to hold down his teammates and not have balanced scoring, and that'll lead that opposing team to a victory.
Yeah, it was a great series over the weekend for Father's Day. NBA Conference semifinals, a bit of everything treated to two. Game 7, some thrilling basketball. The Bucks and also the Brooklyn Nets, the Atlanta Hawks, and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Clippers and the Jazz, they got off to a start in Game 1. It's all fair and love and war. But I just want to get your thoughts on when you think about Giannis and also the great Kevin Durant. So many people were challenging whether Giannis had the heart or not. But I saw when they decided to kind of put the game away, not that they put it away because it was right down to the wire, but I saw Giannis go at Durant, Big C, gave an elbow to the sternum, knocked Durant back, and then slam dunked the basketball. And that was a statement by Giannis Antetokounmpo for everybody saying that he didn't have the heart for the game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I've been saying that all along, Charlton, but it took him 7 games to get to that point to realize what it took to become victorious in that series, Charlton. I mean, Giannis, when he goes down in the paint, there's nobody on Brooklyn's roster that can play basketball with him. He just needed to have that mindset and understand that you'll make a highlight reel dunking over Kevin, just like you will make a highlight reel making a three-point shot.
Yeah.
But you're more effective for your team and more dominant when you're down in the paint. You got 2 7-footers. They took it to Brooklyn by being in the paint.
Yeah.
Not living out there on the arc, Charlton, it made a world of difference in the series.
Yeah, it made a great world of difference, and the Gotham City is amazing that the Bucks edged in overtime, Game 7. Durant's 48-point, dropping 48 points in the bucket from across the East River of Manhattan, Big C. Game 7 thriller. It's the first do-or-die game in overtime in 15 years. Came down to a matter of inches, as we talked about the great Kevin Durant. That's one of the only times in the universe that guys want to have smaller feet, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you put Brooklyn against the wall, Charlton. It's just like I said, when you back a buck up, he has no place to go but forward and use those horns, and that's what they did against Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But Kevin Durant was masterful in this series. He played an outstanding series.
Yeah.
But that one individual is not always enough. But this goes to show that Kevin Durant and James Harden are not the best matchup. This is the second time in their career get together, Charlton, that they've lost the Game 7 of a series to make it to the NBA's potential final.
Yeah, and as great as James Harden is, he was 2 of 12 from 3, and there were a couple of times when he decided to pass a guy who at that time was sitting on 40-plus points. He would pass it to Durant with about 3 seconds left, and he's already behind the three-point arc. Not that he passed it down the side of the paint, but he would wait till like 2 or 3 seconds left. It seemed like he hadn't learned what happened in Houston when he would do that too. But you would think about Durant, one of the best players I've ever seen with a basketball in his hands, Big C. It's amazing how he was so, in my opinion, he did what a lot of people needed to see. After Giannis dropped 40 points and 13 rebounds, and Middleton had a tie-breaking shot of 40 seconds left in overtime, after the game was all said and done and everybody had their heart, it's like the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, I saw the great Kevin Durant go around, not only shake the head coach's hand of every team he went over and, Budenholzer, but he embraced the great Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I know media wants to build it up as about these guys hate each other. It was not hate. It was about game, recognizing game, and respecting game. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, this is what professional athletes do in all sports, is that they go congratulate each other. These are guys in the same business together. They are working partners in the same industry to make that industry strong and big. All professional athletes have the ultimate respect for each other because they're all doing the same thing to achieve the same goal.
Yeah.
So this is nothing uncommon that you go around and shake hands. You look at hockey players. They have the hockey line after every match, regardless of how hard that match is going. NFL, the players go out on the field and have congratulatory meetings and also go into prayer.
Yep.
So this is common stature for us professional athletes going congratulating each other.
Yeah, I really appreciate what we saw. Middleton dropped 23 points, 10 rebounds for the Bucks, who reached the Eastern Conference Finals for the second time in 3 years. Big C, they'll play either. It looks like, they obviously going to play Atlanta. And are they going to play a healthy Atlanta? I know they got to figure that out, but everybody has to deal with that. Durant played all 53 minutes in fourth overtime with a turnaround jumper, just inches from being a three-pointer. But when you think about this, Big C, Harden had 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists, but was 5 of 17 from the field and 2 of 12 from three-point. I just wish he would have passed the ball more to Durant, especially coming down the stretch, for the sake of Brooklyn, Big C, Gotham City, Batman. It's all fair and love and war. But 109-107, you can't get much of a better game than that. I haven't seen a game that good in a long, long time. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, yes, you can. You get 109-108, Charlton, so it's 1 point closer. But, the bottom line is that Milwaukee's advancing because they were the better team. They were the more complete team when it came to the playoffs.
Yeah.
They did what they needed in that best-of-7 series, Charlton, to close it out. And to close it out on the road to show that they had no fear of their opponent.
Yeah, Buck is not afraid. Not even going to Brooklyn. You know how tough you got to be to walk around in Brooklyn as a Buck and be afraid and get back home safely, Big C, your thoughts?
So they made it home, Charlton, and they left us a few nets along the way.
It's all fair. I was afraid of that Buck not being able to make it out. The great jumping over cars, Blake Griffin dropped 17 points, had 11 rebounds for the Nets. And they were the team that got away, Big C, because the great Kyrie Irving stepped on King Giannis Antetokounmpo's foot, Big C, a couple of games ago, and he wasn't able to go. But I really appreciate the way the game was played. I thought the officials, for the most part, let things get away. I thought Durant showed what an Iron Man could be, but he went 53 minutes of basketball, Big C. He was scoreless in overtime. But at some point in time, even a long-distance runner can run out of energy, Big C, and I know they got no points off the bench in Brooklyn, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, you got to credit Milwaukee with that, than him not getting any points. He got shut down.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Regardless of how great he is, he got shut down in overtime.
Yeah.
A lot of people run out of fuel throughout the playoffs. Everybody's played the same length of time. But when the defenses had to shut down an individual, they knew they needed to concentrate on Durant.
Yeah.
And that's what Budenholzer did. Said, look, you take this guy out of the equation, we win.
You know, and they did win. I want to bring something up because I think a dominant player, when you think of King Giannis Antetokounmpo, it was his 5th straight game with 30 points, Big C, 10 rebounds. You know, he tied the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's franchise playoff record that he set in 1974. That's amazing for anybody that says that Giannis doesn't have the heart of a champion, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's not that Giannis doesn't have the heart of a champion, it's that he always doesn't play focused. He has to focus on how Kareem got those points. Kareem got those points and rebounds down in the paint.
Yeah.
You think about him having the double-digit rebounds, that's because he's spending some time in the paint. If he's sitting out there on the arc, he's not going to get that double-digit rebound.
Yeah.
So making an adjustment in his game to benefit his team is what he did.
Yeah.
And, you know, not having the heart, that's not the willingness to go down there, which he did not do in a couple games. But when he decided to go down and play in the paint, he became that dominant player that won the back-to-back MVP.
Yeah, he did his thing. It's all fair and level. We're moving on to the finals. I just want to go back to the east side, you know, across the East River from Gotham City, Manhattan, Big C. Durant had his 3rd 40-point game of these playoffs. That's probably as close to Wilt Chamberlain-like performance that I've seen, Big C. The Nets have only had 3 other 40-point postseason games in the NBA history. And when you think about that, Big C, Durant, again, didn't play the whole season because of injuries and everybody having a hitch in their giddy up. But that's absolutely amazing. Any other player, that's even better than Michael Jordan's ever done, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, he was not as tired as other players who played a complete season.
Yeah.
So you got to think that he had some of an advantage because his legs were fresher when it came to the playoffs.
Yeah, very well said. Durant fell to 3-2 in Game 7, though his average rose to 36.2 points per game. His average of 33.3 coming in the game was 3rd among all players, Big C, who happened to play in this big game of basketball, Big C. More at 1 Game 7 behind LeBron James, who averaged 35 points a game in 8 games, and the great Michael Jordan. As great as Michael Jordan was, he only averaged 34 points. I'm going to say only, but in 3 games, Big C, and Durant's above that, Big C, your thoughts?
Yeah, but Durant did not win.
Yeah.
Michael did.
Yeah, Durant did not win, and Michael had the benefit of all those officials, like Magic Johnson said, don't get too close to Michael. They might call a foul. It's all fair. And LeBron, congratulations to the Milwaukee Bucks. The Buck that got away. They could write a book about it. It's the Buck that escaped New York, if that's exists. So you thought that a good title?
No, I mean, it's not the Bucks. They came, they saw, they kicked a little behind Charleston, and they're going back home to play in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, that Buck speaks Italian. The Vidi Vici. He came, he saw, he conquered. His all fair and level war. There's another good thing happening in the world of NBA basketball. Big C, we're seeing a shift to the young legs now, Big C. I know legs are one of the favorite part of chickens, unfortunately for the chicken, but the NBA playoff basketball universe, they saw the rise of the Atlanta Hawks as they flew by the Philadelphia 76ers, and not many people thought that they could do it in a Game 7. A lot of the bookies had them good old boys being underdogs, but when you think about it, as Coach Millen said, they've had success going on the road, no matter whether they are in Philadelphia, no matter whether they were in Boston or New York. This is a young team, and they can fly as high as they need to fly in order to get a win, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, they treated Philadelphia like it was a home court. They treated the Madison Square Garden like it was a home court.
Right.
You got to look. They beat both of those teams more games on the road in their arenas than what they did at their home arena.
Yeah.
Atlanta had no fear of Philadelphia. You know, you got one guy in Philadelphia that you needed to shut down.
Yeah.
That was Joel Embiid. They figured out he was going to get his points.
Yeah.
Tobias Harris was stepping up, knocking down shots also. Seth Curry played out of his mind. But Ben Simmons was an Achilles heel for the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, here's a guy who's making $190 million on a contract and can't hit a jump shot. Matter of fact, he was even scared to dunk the ball at one point in the game because Atlanta put so much pressure on him physically and mentally in this series, he just folded like a kite.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. No one can. I mean, anyone can second guess. That's part of life. Second guessing.
Second guess. We saw that. That's not second guessing.
Yeah.
We looked at it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you need someone to tell you the truth, especially your doctor. And when a doctor doesn't tell you the truth, then how do you know you should take your blood pressure medication? You might think, hey, I'm okay. Doctor told me I'm fine. No, if you're not fine, the doctor needs to tell you. And I know Doc didn't want to throw his team, his player under the bus, Big C. But sometimes you throw the team under the bus when you don't tell the player that he's not what you need, especially in the last 5 minutes of the game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's not that you're doing that, Charlton. This is the way that they played all year long.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the mentality of Ben Simmons. You can look at him and see the lack of confidence in his eyes.
Yeah.
Players who like to dominate will go out there and smile at you. I mean, you didn't see any smiles on the Philadelphia 76ers faces. You could see that on the Atlanta Hawks faces. That was a team of confidence. The Philadelphia 76ers were playing in fear because they had been at that point before in their career where they had been knocked out.
Yeah.
And you could see it every home game they had. When Atlanta came back from a 26-point deficit in the last game played in Philadelphia, you could see Philadelphia cringing all over again and say, here we go.
Yeah.
What do we do to answer this? And then they start crying to the officials and couldn't get bailed out.
Yeah, I saw they felt like they were that MMA fighter that knows he's about to fall, so he's just trying to find a smooth place to land. That's all fair and love and war, Big C. The city of brotherly love, their fans suck, okay? They booed their home team. Those are stupid fans. I don't know how people say they're great fans. That's like kids booing their father on Father's Day, and maybe that's happened in some households.
Well, I'm going to defend the fans in this scenario because they pay for the ticket. And these fans, you have to give them knowledge of the game. They're well-versed in sports. They pay attention to what's going on. They recognize when players are playing and players are not playing. They come there to see the optimum performance for the high price of those tickets that they pay.
Yeah.
And then when they see players not fulfilling that role that they're being paid copious amounts of dollars for, Charlton, and you see them folding like a tent, I mean, fans have the right to boo. I mean, I haven't never been in an arena in my life or a stadium where fans did not boo. I could never call the fans dumb for booing because they recognize that you're supposed to be the best out there. You're supposed to have the advantage, as you said, based on the bookies, and yet you're out there counting down to an opposing team that doesn't have the talent you're supposed to have.
Yeah, I would just wish when they rank fans in tough places to go in and play, you can be the opponent, go to Philadelphia. You don't have to bring your own fans because they'll boo their own team. And in my opinion, they suck. It's just an opinion. Everybody has their own opinion. And the great Trae Young, when you think about it, some kids might boo their father on Father's Day, saying, whatever, for whatever reason. But Trae Young on Father's Day ripped off his jersey, and then he went up to the stands and he tossed his souvenir jersey of the first Game 7 road victory that he's had with the Atlanta Hawks to his father, Big C. What a great way. I mean, it wasn't Father's Day, it was Juneteenth. But what a great way to celebrate the fact that he did that. In fact, it was on Sunday that he did that for his dad, or maybe Saturday. All the days run together with all the wine my kids gave. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, it was a momentous moment, the son shares with his parents.
Yeah.
And you don't always get opportunities like that in life where you can share those moments with your dad when you're an athlete.
Yeah,
but it was a great gesture at the point. And like I said, it was a momentous victory. When you look at the Atlanta Hawks in this series, Charlton, every time they wore a black jersey, they kicked the Philadelphia 76ers' butt.
Yeah, it's a Hawk beat up I guess there won't be any Hawk on the Philadelphia cheesesteak. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I guess the Minutemen won't be showing up talking about, the British are coming in on. They were saying the Hawks were coming.
It's all fair, 11 war. The great Trae Young, Ice Young, made a late three-pointer and scored 21 points to help Atlanta win for the third time in this series in the city of brotherly love, which is an oxymoron because they booed their brothers, and I think they're a horrible crowd. It's all fair, love, and war. And a 103-96 victory over the top-seeded 76ers Sunday night in Game 7. The Hawks are going to open the East Finals, since I think it was 2015 season that they're going to open. They're going to be on Wednesday night. They're going to be in Milwaukee, which has a raucous crowd, Big C. Atlanta's been 0-9 in Game 7s on the road, but they broke a lot of stereotypes in winning this game in Philadelphia against the great Joel Embiid. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the organization is 0-9, not the young Nouveau Hawks that they have right now, Charlton. These players were not around when the Hawks were going 0-7 in those playoff series. This is a new breed of players. They got a new coach in McMillan who has taken them to new heights and brought out the confidence in the players.
Yeah.
And when they have the mentorship of him versus the cockiness and arrogance of the players that you have in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
When you're sitting there crying to the officials all the time instead of just following what the coach said, because I couldn't put this loss on Doc Rivers.
No.
I got to put it on the players. Doc got too much experience.
Yep.
He's been down that path before. But when you got players that are not listening to what Doc says and taking the game in the hand, and especially when you look at the number of times that Embiid wanted to set up outside the arc.
And shoot
he's
three.
Unstoppable in the paint.
Yeah.
But it's almost like he's scared of the paint.
Yeah, whether it's knee or whatever it is, if you're going to be on the court, don't be a disability or a liability. You're 7 feet tall, go down the paint and dunk on somebody or get your three-point basket that way. It's just my opinion. But he did drop 31 points, had 11 rebounds, and 8 turnovers. People might say, well, Doc Rivers is Ben Simmons' fault because Ben's afraid to shoot the ball. Well, they're marquee guys, the great, and I love Joel Embiid. I think he's the best player, the best big man in the league. That's my opinion. But he did have 11 turnovers. I know you say they shoot him up with some kind of hurt no more stuff, and obviously he had something that was affecting him from jumping too high, but he still grabbed 11
my
rebounds.
Conclusion, when you look at the 8 turnovers, you think about it, he had back-to-back games of 8 turnovers.
Yeah.
They had back-to-back losses.
Yeah.
You know how he got those 8 turnovers? He got them by going out beyond the arc, Charlton, and then trying to dribble in and penetrate.
Yeah.
Put the ball down on the floor where those 6'2" and 6'3" guys have a better advantage of getting to the basketball over him.
Yeah.
That's what was creating those turnovers.
Big C, I agree 100%. A 7-foot-tall man doesn't need to try to bring it the length of the court just to show that he has basketball skills. It marked only the second year since 1973 when the NBA began seeding for the playoffs by conference, when neither number one or no number one seed will make the conference finals. Utah got knocked out and Philadelphia just got knocked out. It's all fair in love and war. Big C, I want to ask you one more question before we move on. And again, everybody has their own opinion. All the talk about the money and the contract for Simmons, I guess he's a great defensive player. But last I checked, you got to play defense and offense oftentimes within about 5 seconds. You make a basket on offense, you got to turn around and start playing defense immediately. Is he a guy that's going to be a part of that trust in the process that they're talking about in Philadelphia? Big C, your thoughts?
The process is over in Philadelphia. It was eliminated yesterday, Charlton. The process is gone. Ben Simmons will no longer be a part of the process because he cannot coexist. I think the Philadelphia 76ers found a guy that they could use as point guard in Seth Curry. There were other players that were more active offensively than him.
Yeah.
So they're going to put the ball in somebody else's hands. But I don't know if Ben Simmons is tradable because who in the hell wants a guy who can't shoot and you got to pay him $190 million?
The ownership group of the Philadelphia 76ers, they want a Big C, your thoughts?
Well, no, he's under contract, but I'm talking about trading. He's not tradable. There's no organization in the NBA willing to give up that kind of asset to bring in somebody who's going to be a liability.
Yeah, I wish him nothing but the best, but it's a tough game. And sometimes when you have that kind of money, you would think you would spend at least 20 hours a day working on your free throw or your jump shot, but sometimes it's not that important to people.
So he ain't been the same since he was hanging out with that Kardashian girl.
Yeah.
He ain't hit a shot since.
Yeah, well, some buckets are not worth dropping, if that makes sense, Big C. And some habits are hard to break. You ever have a hard time breaking a habit, Big C, your does?
No, I just go to therapy.
Yeah, some habits can cost you $200 million. It's all fair and level war, Big C. Going to Atlanta, though, before the Big C paused, they found a diamond in the rough. His name is Hooter, Big C. He dropped 27 points. He looks like he should still be in high school, but he had the confidence when Simmons didn't to at least shoot the ball, Big C, your thoughts?
Herder was the difference in the game, Charles. He's been the difference in the past 2 games for the Atlanta Hawks. He led them in scoring in this game against Philadelphia, and he was the X factor that people were not counting on. He led the team in scoring in the first half, Charlton, got them out to that lead, but they had no response for him, Charlton. He was fearless. And especially going down the stretch, knocking down free throws to ice the game.
Yeah, it's a big win for the city of Atlanta. Atlanta, and you could talk about Philadelphia having the right to boo their fans. I haven't seen Atlanta on TV a lot, but I doubt if Atlanta's going to turn around and boo their own team for giving them a chance to go to a Game 7 just because they don't win it. It's all fair and level war, but I think the Philadelphia fans, they're really highly overrated. It's all fair and level war. Before the Big C pause, Big C. In fact, we'll take the Big C pause now because there's a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about, especially sometimes men looking for a job in the NBA, and they say, well, we don't know if you have the Let's see. What did we say? They've run out of excuses. 3 of the 4 men coaching the NBA Finals are African American. We'll take the Big C pause. In the words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, we'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps you can follow, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on so many other apps. And I really do appreciate the way things have grown with the Big C Sports Podcast. It's all fair and level work. Big C, I want to touch on something because I believe, and I might be wrong, I think there are only 7 African Americans head coaches in the NBA for 30 teams. Well, we just saw one eliminate the other, and Millen knocking off the great Doc Rivers, Big C. So now we have Williams with Phoenix, African American. We also have Big C coming out of Atlanta. You know, we have another African-American head coach. And then if you also look for the LA Clippers, so that's Tyronn Lue. We have so many, only 4 opportunities. And Budenholzer that they wanted to fire is in with Milwaukee. If there's sometimes, you always say people just want to have an opportunity. You always say, who's in the room? The way you said, who's in the room? When decisions are being made. Big C, who in any room cannot see that there are 3 or 4 African-American head coaches that are coaching this team with a chance to win an NBA championship? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think it's obvious the vision on the sideline that there's 3 African-American coaches, but I think even more important, Charlton, is that there's 3 former players that are head coaches in the Final 4 of the NBA tournament. Budenholzer had been fired in Atlanta a few years ago. Before he got to Milwaukee. After taking the team to a 60-win season. So a 60-win season in the NBA doesn't guarantee you a job. Act Nurse, up in Toronto. He won 60 games and got fired. But I think the more important part of that, yes, they're African American, but I think the more important part is that you're keeping former players employed in the league, Charlton, because they have firsthand knowledge of the league and the players. And more importantly is that they have first-hand knowledge of the social backgrounds of the athletes that are in the league now. And they're able to relate even more with that. And I think that's what all professional sports needs to look at. Is men that can relate with the social backgrounds of the young men that are perpetuating the league forward. And you have to have that identification other than some stale old name.
You know, what can the NFL learn about that? And then I want to ask you a few things about this process again. What can the NFL learn about that? I think we had the same thing in the NFL with the AFC and NFC playoffs. Kansas City had an African-American offensive coordinator in Bieniemy, and then Tampa Bay also had one offensively, and defensive coordinators were African-Americans, and they just happened to win a Super Bowl, if that makes sense. Big C, your thoughts?
The NFL can't learn a damn thing from the NBA because the players in the NBA own the league. In the NFL, they don't. It's a plantation mentality where the owner wants to be the top dog. In the NBA, the players own 53% of the league. So they have a say-so in what happens with the coaches. The NFL, they don't. They have guaranteed contracts in the NBA. In the NFL, it's like insurance. Oh, stuff happens. It smells on the bottom of your foot. Okay? The NFL is not going to learn anything from the NBA.
Well, again, all I did was read about a tweet. Even Marv Alvarez said that Durant and Giannis are good property. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, they are good property. They all belong, but they have guaranteed property money. There's a big difference. You can't cut an NBA player and say, oh, well, that's what happened. You cut an NFL player, that's your last check. It doesn't happen that way in the NBA.
Very well said. So I want to reiterate something you talked about, because I think it's important. Everyone was asking Doc Rivers, are you going to throw him under the bus now, or are you going to wait until the season's over, if that makes sense to you with Simmons? So the NBA, they busted the process along the way. Young from the floor, 5 of 23, not his best game, but he kept shooting until he hit that 3 with 93-87 lead, 2:31 left, and scored 21 points to help Atlanta win for the 3rd time in this series in the city of brotherly love that boos their own brothers. What a joke, Big C. 103-96 victory over the top-seeded 76ers Sunday night Game 7. John Collins and Clint Capella scored a double figures. I thought they played so solid. But the game, when you think about it, it was led by Kevin Huerter, Big C. The Hawks will open their first Eastern final since 2015 against the Bucks in Wednesday in Milwaukee. In the house for a brazen confidence, John Collins had 14 points, 16 rebounds, Big C. He wore his post-game interview a T-shirt of him dunking on Embiid in Game 6. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they made some, exclamation clauses against the Philadelphia 76ers. But they also showed the 76ers that they were not worried about them, that they were not scared of them.
Yeah.
That, they thought that Philadelphia was a media team. And if you watch the game, Philadelphia did a lot of whining throughout the game.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah.
And that takes you out of your game because Atlanta was in their head. Atlanta had no fear. They just ran up and down the court on them.
Yeah.
And like I said, Kevin Huerter just took control of the game. Trae Young played terrible basketball. I mean, he kept shooting. Yes, he finally hit that three-point late in the game.
Yeah.
But he put them in a bad position in several occasions, even late in the game when he took an ill-advised free.
Yeah.
When all he had to do was go into the paint and do a floater, and it would have made it a two-shot lead, and he still wanted to shoot a three.
Yeah, he still, it's about seeing guys do what they build their habits of. Philadelphia Freedom! There was a song about that back in the day, Big C. So the great Embiid, I think he was even fined for his theatrics in Game 6, what happened after the court. I think it was $35,000. He pulled it out of his sock and said, I hope that makes you happy. It's all fair and love and war. But Embiid, the NBA MVP runner-up. Simmons, a high-priced cast of stars, was supposed to put the upstart Hawks in their place. And some people call their place a deep fryer, if you call what they do with birds down in the South, deep fryer, Big for your thoughts?
Well, you got to understand what the Tea Party was in Philadelphia, Charleston.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't collapse.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about the process that they developed in Philadelphia almost a decade ago with Embiid, with Simmons, with Fultz, and with Noel. I mean, it may be only Simmons. Embiid left in a month.
Yeah, they got to make some changes. But Doc is the right man to do it as long as he's honest. And maybe he's not telling the media what he tells his players inside the locker room, but you can't put a flat tire on a performative race car and think it's going to cross the finish line, if that makes sense to you. But it never happened. It never happened. They never put the Hawks in that deep fryer, Big C, and closed the book on the debate about the rebuilding process known as the process. And Embiid had 31 points, 11 rebounds, 8 turnovers. Tobias Harris dropping 24 points. And I thought Seth Curry learned a lot to shoot from his father, Dale, and also his brother, Steph, Big C, dropping 16 points. But he does it, and I thought he should have been on the court more, Big C, I thought.
Well, I mean, those are coaching decisions, Charlton. I mean, he was the guy when the Philadelphia 76ers were winning, was getting them over the hump.
Yeah.
And I think, you go with the cohesiveness that is working.
Yeah.
But, Doc kept trying to get Ben Simmons into the rotation.
Yeah, maybe whatever you kind of, I don't know. It's all fair and love and war. The Atlanta advanced, Big C. It's all fair and love and war. I want to turn to the Western Conference because the Pacific Ocean is it has the perfect ingredients to turn down the heat when you splash the Valley of the Sun. And I think the Valley of the Sun is named after some type of salt riverbed. I guess all the rivers dried up in Phoenix, so they call it the Valley of the Sun based on some type of salt river that dried up. But Game 1 was the back-and-forth battle between the great Devin Booker, Big C, and the great King Paul George. As a two-way had it all day long, the Suns 120-114 win. It was a little bit closer than the score indicates, Big C. Booker, who's an absolute stud. I mean, he's an absolute star rising, Big C. He's a Phoenix rising. The great Booker, he finished with the Suns' first playoff triple-double since the great Steve Nash accomplished that feat in 2005. The all-star guard, Big C, was masterful. His offensive end, he was efficient from the floor. He shot 52%, Big C, recording 40 points to go along with 13 rebounds and 11 assists, and he seemingly made the right play whenever Phoenix needed it the most, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he was consistent, Charlton, and the Clippers had no answer for him.
Yeah.
When you talk about Paul George, I mean, you're supposed to put Paul George on and be able to shut him down. But no one can shut him down. When you shoot over 50% from the floor from the guard position, Charlton, you're unconscious on the floor. Yeah,
he was in his zone. They call it the higher self. Michael Jackson used to say he sang from his higher self. Also, the great late Tupac did that too. On the other side, King Paul George led the charge for the Clippers. He didn't have his friend, the great Kawhi Leonard, but he dropped 34 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. But in the end, it wasn't enough to overcome Booker, who's an absolute stud, Big C, in the rest of the Suns. Missing in action, the Clippers role players, Terrence Mann, who went off in the game in L.A. when they knocked out the Jazz, Big C. Marcus Morris, I mean, he didn't have the great game. Nicholas Batten, he combined to score 20 points, those three, while George and Jackson carried the majority of the offensive workload for L.A. in Game 1. If there's a bright side for the Clippers, they like losing the first two games to make it more difficult and challenging for the fans in L.A., Big C.
Yeah, but Charlton, this is a team that has healthy guards that can move the ball up and down the court. That's something that Utah did not have.
Yeah.
They didn't have one game where they had two healthy guards. Arizona can bring that. The Phoenix Suns can bring that to the floor.
Yeah.
Because they're a guard-led team.
Yeah.
And they can bring it. And when you think about Ayton on the inside, they don't have an answer for Ayton. He can defend all of the Clippers on the inside. He's that rim protector that with that athleticism, there's going to be a lot of problems for the Clippers.
Yeah, it's all fair in love and war. But the Clippers got this far, and they've never been here. So it's all fair in love and war. They still have a chance. And I don't know if the Claw's coming back or not, but they found out that they can knock off the number 1 seed, the Utah Jazz, and get here. We will see what happens for basketball on the beautiful West Coast next to the Pacific Ocean. I want to turn to a place that they could really use some more of in Phoenix called Ice, Big C. Ice hockey, the world of the NHL playoff. Universe Rob Leonard, Big C, knew the Las Vegas Golden Knights' decision to start them Game 4 against the Montreal Canadiens would be viewed by some as controversial, Big C. He was exceptional in Vegas' 2-1 overtime win against Montreal on Sunday, stopping 27 of 28 shots, Big C, keeping the Golden Knights in the game as they struggle to find their offense yet again. And the Golden Knights have now tied the semifinal series at 2 apiece, Big C, and it shifts back to Vegas for Game 5 on Tuesday, which may just be what the doctor ordered, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Knights sit down their starting goalie, Marc-Andre Fleury, Charlton, because he gave up too many easy goals in Game 3.
Yeah.
And gave him a chance to sit back and get a bird's eye view of the game going, developing, Charlton.
Yeah.
But this was a game that the Knights needed to balance out the series.
Yeah.
And they delivered. I mean, when your backs are against the wall, and the Knights have been in this position 3 out of the 4 years that they've been existing in the NHL.
Yeah, they're a hot story. I know people are excited about the Raiders coming to Las Vegas, but them Golden Knights, Big C, they've given them something to be excited about. They actually make the playoffs. Even if they're on ice, they make the playoffs. Big C, it's all fair in level war. We'll see what happens more as they get back home in a crucial Game 5 of the NHL's chase for the Lord Stanley's Big C Cup. It's all fair in level war. Big C, I want to go to the East Coast because if you want to see playoffs, you got to watch NHL because the Knicks are gone and the Nets are gone. And those are the two teams that New York media goes crazy about. The press goes crazy in Gotham City about those two teams. But now they got the Islanders, New York defenseman, Big C, Ryan Pollock. He grew, when you think about it, he grew more in confidence. He knew he was needed to get in the way of Ryan McDonald, Big C. The shot at the net, it was open shot. It was the biggest play of the Islanders' latest series, game time 4, to win that game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Islanders have always been a tough out in the NHL, Charlton, and they're playing lights out. I mean, you think about the sports fans of New York and what they've been treated to over the past month in that city, with the Knicks being in the playoffs, the Nets being in the playoffs, and the Islanders being in the playoffs. But the Islanders are the last team standing against the defending Stanley Cup champs.
Yeah, the Islanders are the last team standing. And now all the Knicks fans and the Nets fans can try to get a ticket or at least sneak in and watch the Islanders play. It's all fair and level. The great Matt Martin capped a 3-goal second period. Plug made a driving stop, and the Islanders held on to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, Big C. The Tampa Bay Lightning got upset 3-2 Saturday night to even the Stanley Cup semifinal series at 2 games apiece. Josh Bailey, the great Josh Bailey, and Matthew Barzal also scored, and Cal Clutterbuck and Adam Plelik, Big C, each had 2 assists, and Simon Vandermoog finished with 28 saves, and it helped the Islanders win Game 4. They tied that series after dropping the previous game at home for the 3rd time in the postseason, and they needed that, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the Lightning, Charlton, they didn't expect to be in the dogfight that they're in, after almost sweeping that last series that they were in and coasting, past the previous series.
Yeah.
And now they're in this dogfight against the Islanders. The winner of this series may not have enough gas in the tank
Yep.
once it comes down to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, it's all fair and level war. At least they give New York something to watch. I know the Yankees are still trying to get their ship righted, and the Mets, it's all fair and level war with them. But it's great to see the Islanders, the team that's probably least loved going into the playoffs, Big C, with the Knicks and also the Nets. They're the ones that are still fighting. They're the least publicized. They're the least that we get national attention. But it's like
that's national attention.
Yeah.
When you're in New York, Charlton, everybody knows who the Islanders are.
Yeah.
The Islanders have won more championships than the Knicks. They've won more championships than the Nets. The only team in New York that's won more championships than the Islanders are the Yankees.
Yeah, the Yankees. It's all fair and level war, Big C. So Major League Baseball, speaking of the Yankees, the pitch hit deep, right field, back to the wall, home run. The girls love the long ball and men love hit the deep. It's all fair and level war. New York, it turned its record-tying, when it was a great play if you didn't get a chance to see it, Big C, a record-tying triple play of the season into the stand go-ahead run in the ninth inning, bailing out closer Aldous Chapman, the great Aldous Chapman, from a kind of a shaky outing and closed down a 2-1 win over the first-place Oakland Athletics on Sunday. It was the baseball. The defense played in the right position, Big C. They executed the way you're supposed to, and it was a great way for a nail-biting 2-1 win, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, it's one of the most fascinating plays in all of baseball when you turn a triple play, because so many things have to go right in that play, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, the first player has to be able to field the ball correctly and then know where the players are on the mound and get the ball very efficiently.
Yep.
And the Yankees were able to execute that for the third time this season.
Yeah, and that shows you how good the Oakland A's are. First, they're right there, the top two in the record book with the San Francisco Giants right across the bay from each other, the San Francisco-Oakland Bay. And it took almost a perfect defensive play to stop the Oakland A's. That shows you even the Oakland A's, a lot like the New York Islanders, they're probably the most, I guess, maybe the least loved team in the Bay Area. They come behind the Golden State Warriors, San Francisco 49ers, San Francisco Giants, and I would say maybe even less appreciated than the San Jose Sharks that always have sellout crowds. At the Oakland Coliseum, you're lucky if you get 20,000 fans on the weekend, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you're in a hard-hit economic area. I mean, this is a team that at one time was one of the darlings of Major League Baseball, winning 3 consecutive World Series and making multiple appearances in the World Series in the 80s.
Yeah.
But this is a team, because of ownership, that's constantly disbanded their roster. So fan familiarity with the players is just not there, because once a player reaches stardom, the A's get rid of them instead of paying them and keeping the fan base.
Yep, you're right, Big C. The great baseball story. Who's on first? Who's on second? I don't know, but I know they're wearing green jerseys. It's all fair and level where the Oakland A's. Baseball, Major League Baseball universe, Big C. The great Kyle Schwarber. He homered 3 times and tied a Major League record with 5 in a 2-game span, leading the Washington Nationals over the New York Mets. It was 5-2 on Sunday to take it 3 out of the 4 series. You go 3 times deep, Big C, in such a short period of time, he's batting with a laser beam, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I kind of think that the Chicago Cubs are kicking themselves in the hind end, because they let Schwarber get away.
Yeah.
And he is having a masterful year with the Nationals there in Washington, Charlton. I mean, he hit his 18th home run over the weekend to lead the Nationals in that respect. But he's been outstanding and a great offensive power for them.
Yep. The pitch hit deep. He was hitting it deep, Big C. It's all fair and level war. He set a Nationals Montreal Expos record by homering 9 times in a 10-game span, increasing his total to 18 this season with his first career 3-homer game. Now, if you can go deep, Big C, 9 times in 10 games, what is it about the opposing manager that says, pitch to that guy, Big C? Yes,
Well, consistency. I guess now that baseball has put this new watch on, the pitchers doctoring up the ball and putting the goof on themselves, and they're not getting that spin ratio that they want. He's seeing the ball better.
So he said, you want to see a spinning ratio? Watch your head spin around as I go yard. Here's deep. Right field. Back to the wall. Home run. That's his spin ratio, Big C, making the head turn around. It's all fair and level war. He's in the second player in the Nationals Expos franchise history with 5 home runs in a 2-game span. He joined the great Bryce Harper, who accomplished that feat in 2015. And I know it probably won't happen, but I saw the Raiders go up to Canada and they played an exhibition game, and I think they played it against the Green Bay Packers. I want to say they played in Edmonton. It would be nice. The Major League Baseball goes down to Mexico, Big C. They play games in Mexico. Wouldn't it be just the right thing to do if the Nationals went maybe a weekend series and played a game in Montreal, Big C, where they came from, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it would be interesting, but Major League Baseball, to go across the border, they got to do a lot of things right now because the Blue Jays are not even playing in Toronto.
Yeah, well, that's fair. They said maybe get the Blue Jays back home first. It's all fair in Leavenworth. I want to talk about something that I think is important because this is so important for the college level. You and I talk about sports and news is probably more than any sports show in the universe, and now a lot of people do. But in college sports, Big C, the Supreme Court rules against the NCAA. It opens doors to education-related compensation, and everyone needs to hear this, especially young kids that are focused on more than just playing sports, Big C. In a ruling that could help push changes in college athletics, the Supreme Court unanimously ruled that the NCAA cannot enforce certain rules, Big C, that limit the education-related benefits, things like computers and graduate scholarships, that colleges offer athletes, and oftentimes they use that to hold it over their head. If you try to get money, we're going to take away your scholarship, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about what the plantation has done for decades called college athletics, Charlton, holding these players for ransom, making them work for free while they benefit economically hundreds of millions of dollars every year, Charlton, off of their labor.
Yeah.
You know, the Supreme Court did the right decision today. Because when we think about antitrust, this is how the NCAA is operated under antitrust.
Yep.
Not allowing these athletes to go out and gain economic wealth, Charlton, all for the benefit of their employment. And so this move today by the NCAA, by the Supreme Court, which upheld the lower court's ruling earlier, brought by a West Virginia football player, Charlton, several years ago, has finally come to fruition.
It's finally come to fruition, Big C, and I'm so glad that it came to fruition because they need that, and they need players standing up for the good of players who bring in all of that money. They bring it in on the dump trucks, but they don't get the chance to participate. Somebody steals it from them, Big C, and they give them a tennis shoes and a hat. So the case does not decide whether the students can be paid salaries, Big C. Instead, the ruling will help determine whether the schools decide to offer athletes tens of thousands of dollars in those benefits for tutoring, studying abroad, and internships. And that's a good thing, too, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, to offer many options for the players other than just being an athlete, Charlton, to continue your education. If you decide you want to be a Rhodes Scholar, then they have to foot the bill for that, Charlton, that, you don't have to worry about qualifying for that scholarship.
Yeah.
And to talk about computers, hell, all the kids got it anyway, they call it phones. But there's many other ways that, you can compensate the kids now. We saw the games in the Staples Center in Los Angeles where they had all those figurines, cardboard cutouts, Charlton. Now they're just stuffing with money and passing them out to UCLA and USC.
That's a low blow, Big C. I was talking to a good old boy today. He went to University of Auburn, and I said, that's the team that USC shut out at Jordan Hare in 2004. It was 23-0. They shut them out at home in front of all you good old boys. And he said, is that the team that got put on probation? I said, that's a low blow, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this coincides with the Pac-12 hiring a Capito head from Las Vegas, Charlton, to be able to dole out the money so now they can count the chips properly.
Hey, what did Arnold Schwarzenegger say in The Terminator? I'll be back. That's what the Pac-12 is saying. We'll be back to get that championship. He's all fair in Leavenworth. But I want to go back to this. The highest court agreed with a group of former college athletes that NCAA limits on the education-related benefits that colleges can offer athletes who play D1 basketball and football that can't be enforced. Justice Neil Gorsuch, Big C, of all people, he wrote for the court that the NCAA, and I think that's so important, Big C, Neil Gorsuch did, that the NCAA sought immunity from the normal operation of the antitrust laws, which the court declined to grant. Isn't that something? The NCAA that's been stealing money, they're asking the court to not go by the law, Big C.
Well, I mean, the NCAA did not realize that Joe Biden just signed Juneteenth, the national holiday.
Yep.
The freedom of all slaves, Charlton.
Yeah.
And so the Supreme Court backed up what Joe Biden did, said, no, you can't keep these people as slaves any longer.
Yeah, I thought that was very well. Can you please ignore the law so we can keep stealing from these people? It's all fair in 11 words. So schools can immediately provide education benefits to athletes beyond tuition, and they include unlimited grad school, vocational study, abroad scholarships, computers, equipment, and tutoring up to about $6,000 cash and academic awards, which also is it's a drop in the bucket compared to what the SEC's already been doing for their slate recruits next year. Allegedly.
Well, Charlton, that's where it starts at. It's the $6,000.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, USC might be able to afford one or two athletes now and might be able to potentially win the Pac-12 title, but that still does not provide enough for them to win a national title.
What did Dorothy say? There's no place like home, and the Pac-12 says, let's bring a guy who knows where all the money is. Big C, the guy involved in gaming, and now he's going to be part of the Pac-12 commissioner. That's just funny. Don't invite pimps to be the Girl Scouts leader of America. It's all fair in 11 words, Big C. Just an opinion, allegedly. But I do want to touch on most of the athletes in the Power 5 schools. They are African American, Big C, and most of them will not even get consideration for a job, let alone an assistant job that leads to head coaching jobs, Big C. But guys that are white, they're bounced around. They lose a job at one school. They, hey, good old boy calls Joe calls Bob calls Dave, and then he shows up on another staff, Big C. They want to act like the black men have to win a national championship, become All-American, and a Heisman Trophy winner to even get a job. It's all fair in 11 words. Black History, President Joe Biden signed a bill Thursday making Juneteenth a national holiday, delivering a victory to the civil rights activists like the great Opal Lee of Fort Worth, Texas, Big C. Considered by many as the grandmother of Juneteenth, Miss Opal Lee is an educator by vocation, but a social activist by calling, always eager to help someone in need, Big C. For decades, a 94-year-old beautiful woman has been an advocate to have the holiday recognized at the national level. At the, I guess, it bothers a lot of conservative talk shows that I hear. It's amazing how so many people are perturbed that they would have another holiday for people who built this country on the free labor, Big C. But for decades, 94-year-old, the beautiful Miss Lee has been an advocate for the holiday that recognized at the national level in 2016. Keep this in mind, Big C. She's an older woman. She walked 1,400 miles from Fort Worth, Texas, to Washington to bring awareness to the celebration and initiated an online petition in hopes of gaining support from Congress to officially name Juneteenth a national federal holiday. Now, 5 years after she launched her campaign, Juneteenth has become the first federal holiday signed into law since the great late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1983. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, we commemorate Miss Opal Lee on her plight, Charlton, to have this become a national holiday. But it's a federal holiday. It's not a national holiday. It's the choice of each state whether they want to recognize this as a national holiday, Charlton, just like with Dr. King's holiday. The state of Arizona and Mississippi would not recognize. Mississippi still has not recognized King's birthday as a national holiday, and employees don't get that day off.
Wow.
Arizona took them the loss of a Super Bowl to recognize it as a state holiday, Charlton, to pay employees and give them that day off.
Yeah.
But, just the advancement of this and Miss Opal Lee's fight, there were many, blacks before her that led her down this path, Charlton, to show her and guide her to the importance of we need a national black holiday in America. We celebrate Independence Day, Charlton, the day that the whites took the land from the Native Americans in this country, and they made that a national holiday based on an atrocity that white people did, Charlton. And this is another atrocity that white people served on black people in America. And they need to come to fruition, Charlton, that, we are all people in this country. And we need to celebrate all things. They celebrate Columbus Day. They celebrate St. Patrick's Day. All these other days, Charlton. Blacks were the major contributors to the growth and the development of this nation called America. And it needs to be recognized.
Just like what the Supreme Court said, that college kids can get paid. No slaves were ever paid, Big C. None. But they built the wealth of a lot of people. As Native American and the Native Texan, actually, she was born in Marshall on October 7, 1926. The beautiful Miss Lee has been observing Juneteenth for as long as she can remember. Not all of the memories of the holidays are happy ones, Big C. The beautiful Miss Lee recalls the Juneteenth when her family's home in Fort Worth, Southside, was burned by white neighbors, Big C. People had gathered on E. Annie Street because of her family had integrated into the white neighborhoods. The papers say that it was about 500 strong and that the police could not control them, a lot like what happened when the nation's capital was also, they invaded that, Big C, and damaged that property, Big C, our nation's capital. She says, invoking decades-old memories, but her dad, she says something very poignant on Father's Day, Big C. Her dad came home with a gun, and the police told him that if he busted a cap, that they would have the mob have him. Because a lot of times, even law enforcement, they deputize these white mobs to destroy and loot black communities. And oftentimes, even conservative talk shows, they'll say, well, aren't they going to burn down buildings? Aren't they going to burn down buildings? Well, where do you think they learned to burn down buildings, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, this has been a plight of black history in America, is that everything that blacks have built up since slavery, Charlton, whites have gone in and tried to destroy. But blacks keep persevering, Charlton, and rebuilding. I mean, if you were to look at the animal world, Charlton, and the insect world, blacks would be considered like ants. We keep surviving. Through all atrocities that are put forth towards us, Charlton, we find a way to resurrect ourselves and keep going strong.
Yeah.
And this is what blacks have done over time. And like you said, with conservative radio, they cry and they complain about every time that blacks burn down a facility in a city.
Yeah.
You got to understand that blacks were denied insurance coverage on their property that all whites burned out in the early 1900s.
That's right.
Charlton,
yeah.
Because the insurance companies would say that the blacks invoked the incident by being there, by living in a home, by being in a business. If a white mob came and burned it down, it was the black people's fault for being black.
And they would not pay the insurance claim. And you can Google that. I mean, it's a horrific what happened, but there were no Big C Sports to bring it to attention, and that's why I'm proud of what we do. It takes all good people, black and white, but it's amazing how many people of color have been just pushed down and knocked down by law enforcement. Okay? Google it. It's all fair and level. Where as we close out Big C and we talk about trying to open up things, we have the great Eli Manning. He's back in football with the New York Giants, but this time business operations and fan engagement role. Also, Arizona Cardinals rookie linebacker Zevin Collins arrested for excessive speed and reckless driving. Make sure you hit the brake more than you hit the gas pedal, Big C. I want to just talk about one more thing. New Orleans Saints running back, the great Alvin Kamara, now advertising on NASCAR and trying to grow that fan base. We've seen a lot of that happen, and now I guess they're trying to grow it and so that more people would be involved in the NASCAR experience. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, it's diversity in sports. I mean, we've had many black athletes cross over that barrier of NASCAR as far as an ownership they have. It started with Brad Daugherty, former Cleveland Cavalier, North Carolina player who owns the team. Michael Jordan is involved in NASCAR. Alvin Kamara got involved in the offseason also as being a part-time owner in NASCAR.
Yeah, it's all fair and level war. I wish everybody nothing but the best as you go out and rise and shine. I hope that everybody had a great Father's Day weekend, and unlike Big C that ate too much food based on his own opinion, I guess you were acting like Shrek. You know, Shrek also ate too much food on his Father's Day. Eddie Murphy.
I'm not sure who Shrek is. He's not in my neighborhood.
He's a cartoon character played by the great Eddie Murphy. It's all fair and level. I hope that everybody had a great Father's Day weekend. I know I had a great one. Thanks to my wife and my kids that gave me a great Father's Day weekend. And may everybody always rise and shine. No matter what you do, you got to always rise and shine in this great world. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, you float like a butterfly, and you sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. With all you've got to use, how can you lose? Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, I want to give a shout-out to former NFL great quarterback Randall Cunningham, Charlton, who received a wonderful Father's Day gift over the weekend. His daughter, Charlton, qualified for the U.S. Olympic team as a high jump champion. She won the gold medal at the track and field event over the weekend. And Randall's been her coach, Charlton. This young lady cleared 6'5.5" to capture the crown for the U.S. high jump champ, and now she will be competing in Tokyo in the Olympics, and so Randall's going to get a free trip. Congratulations, Randall. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. There'll also be a lot of them at the Olympics, Charlton. Take care of those muscle pulls and strains of the athletes.
It's all fair at Level War. You don't have to build muscles, and you don't have to rub on some sports cream, but you do have to rise and shine every Monday through Friday at 5 to 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As my mama always says, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.